It's loading. All right. Hello, everybody. Jen Amos here with the Filipino American Women Project. And of course, as always, but kind of finally for the year, I have my amazing co host with me, Nani Dominguez. Nani, welcome to our last live show together here on the Filipino American Women Project.
Yes, last live of the season, y'all. Nice
Yeah.
to be here. Nice to see you all here, and excited to spend the night with you.
Yeah, we just recently did our final recording for the Filipino American Women Project, which will be coming out tomorrow, especially if you are joining us live. It's going to be coming out first thing tomorrow morning on Friday. And I have to say, Nani, that when like in re-listening to it, I felt sad, but I also felt content at the same time. I feel satisfied in knowing that we had produced a lot of content, in this last month alone. And I feel like I can now enjoy the holidays and rest, knowing that we worked hard. We hustled this last month.
Yes, we put in work.
Yeah, to say the least, right? And so, without further ado, I am really excited. And for if you are joining us today, welcome. We're really excited for our live show today. Today we have with us. Okay, it's so funny because I don't have Dennis to edit this for me, so y'all are gonna have like all the fun mistakes that Jen makes that cannot get edited out. So anyway, without further ado, I am really excited to bring on someone who we actually interviewed on our exclusive podcast show, Chismes with Jen and Nani. We have Kirby Araullo, who is a renowned historian, culture bearer, and YouTuber. And real quickly, I want you all now to check out his website, kirbyaraullo.com. We are actually going to be covering his coloring book today, which we'll be showing you all here momentarily. But you could actually get a discounted price for his book by using our promo code TJN15. TJN stands for Chismes with Jen and Nani, BT dubs. But you can use that promo code when you order any of Kirby's books at his website, kirbyaraullo.com. So without further ado, I know everyone's been seeing Kirby on here already, but Kirby, welcome to our last live stream here for the last year, or for 2021.
Yay, thank you. I'm excited. Thank you for having me as your last show.
Yeah. It's I feel like it's quite nostalgic, and not nostalgic. It's like I have like mixed feelings, and it's also like 9 o'clock at night here, so I'm kind of like working through high caffeine and everything right now. But one thing to our listeners, in case to our viewers here, we actually did a private or exclusive interview, like I said, with Kirby on Chismes with Jen and Nani, which you could actually get access to if you become a member at biasboba.com. And so we had an opportunity to learn a little backstory on Kirby and how he started on YouTube as early as 2004, I believe. And so it's just been a really cool, I think it's been really amazing to see how you have progressed and developed your show throughout the years. Nani, I'm curious if you had any thoughts on, kind of that conversation we've had with Kirby, and also how great it is to have him again, here live to wrap up our show.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other way that we would rather be going out for Filipino American History Month and our season finale of the TIFA project. Then with Kuya Kirby, as I've stated many times before, I've been a longtime fan of his YouTube channel and used it as a resource to just learn so much about our culture, and also, just always so curious about his thoughts on things that are coming out in today's time, such as, Trece or Raya and the Last Dragon and things like that are more mainstream, and how his interpretations of his kind of family legacy relates to those messages that those films and publications kind of try to promote. So I've always just really appreciated the content he puts out, and the interview that we did with him in part 1 of this collaboration was really special to me, to just learn about his family legacy and his background, and kind of where he is coming from and the history of his YouTube channel, since it has blown up so much. Oh, hi, Stacy. Oh, hey there.
And surprise, y'all, we also have Stacy joining us today. We just started intro Stacy. So Stacy, hello. I think Kirby's in the background. I think he is probably
his
camera.
My camera is...
We're all just improvising here. I've got to make a bottle for my baby.
Yes. Well, Nani, you do you. You be a mom.
You be a mom.
And oh, wait, do I hear echo in the back? Okay. Stacy, it's great to have you. I know that you had, oh yeah. So anyway, these are our intros. Yes, we have our books. While Nani is doing her thing and while Kirby is doing his thing, I will be the host of the show and improvise because I guess that's my job. But Stacy, it's so great to have you back on. Actually, the reason why we brought Stacy on is one, well, we always want to have her on first and foremost, but two, Stacy, you actually introduced us to Kirby and him being also a co-founder of the Bulosan Center. So I'm just curious if you had some, quick thoughts about Kirby and, how you guys know each other and also thanks for introducing him to us.
Wait, there's so many questions. Okay,
so my first question is, and once we get this edited, I'm going to thank Dennis later for editing this. But so basically, part of the reason why we have Kirby on here today is because of you. Because you actually know him, and you are, you and him are the co-founders of the Bulosan Center, amongst other co-founders as well. And so I would just love to kind of hear a little bit about your guys' relationship and any nice things you want to say about Kirby as he sets up his camera.
Oh, okay. I had to write it down. My mind's all over the place. I just came back, Kirby, from ASA department. So my mind's everywhere. Okay. So my relationship with Kirby. Oh yeah. Okay. I see. I wrote it down. We've been pals and scholar activists together at UC Davis for 3 years now. 4. One of those amounts of years. And we met through Asian American Studies department because I began TAing, a teacher's assistant job position there, and that's where we got along. I guess, I don't know, our love for community and Phil history and Filipinx history. So that's where that started. And then the other question was,
oh, if you just had any nice things to say about Kirby.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, everything is great. Everything's wonderful about Kirby. They have a great YouTube. They've always been open to sharing and collaborating. And they're a NAFCON, right, Kirby? Also, they work for NAFCON. They're one of the main coordinators, representatives of NAFCON. So it's like Kirby's everywhere, doing everything that he can for the Filipinx community. So I can only say nice things.
Thank you. Thank you. Me too.
Yes, and a great representative for us.
Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to just allow Stacy to take a minute here because she did run in late for a reason. So Stacy, don't be modest. Tell us why you are joining us late right now. The floor is yours.
Oh my goodness. I got a FaceTime call while I was, because I just came back from daily study. I'm in Davis right now, UC Davis. And I had one of my colleagues and good sisters. They're just like, you didn't tell me. Why didn't you tell me what you were receiving today? And I was like, oh, because I'm afraid to tell people because of these kinds of conversations. But I appreciate you celebrating me and acknowledging it. So yeah, Yes, I won an award for the Dr. Don Mabalon, Pinay Historian Award, or Scholar Activist, and that will go towards my schooling. And there were 27 recipients, and it's completely funded by the community. Dr. Cubales was one of the people who helped spearhead that organization for scholarships, and also Ruby Ibarra.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Hey.
Yeah, so it was
Ate Allison. If anyone here is a day one fan of the Tifa Project, we have had her on the show. So shout out to her.
Yeah, so it was nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you, but it's not about me.
Congrats, Stacy.
The title says Kirby on it, so it's not about me.
Well, you always deflect attention, and you know me, I always pull you back in. But no, I think it's important to take a minute to, celebrate our successes and to know who we're associated with. They say you are the people you surround yourself with, and it's just incredible, the work that you do, and I'm just so grateful that you're being recognized for it and even rewarded for it. So kudos to you, Stacy. I will now take the spotlight away from you so you can relax and breathe now.
Leave me alone. Oh my goodness, thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that for you. You're welcome. But without further ado, yes, we will go ahead and get on topic now. Quick announcement before we really dive into our presentation today. I do want to let you all know that after Friday, Nani and I are basically, Nani and I and the Filipino American Woman Project is going to be on break. This is our last show, our last episode. And however, it doesn't have to be the last time we stay in community with all of you. So one thing that we're going to be announcing in our episode tomorrow is that through biasboba.com and our private podcast show, Chismis with Jen and Nani, inspired by our conversation that we had with Nani's best friend, Caitlin Demacion, is we are going to be starting a book club. And so you can actually participate in this book club by joining us on biasboba.com. It's really simple. Basically, just buy us a minimum of 1 cup of boba and let us know that you want to be part of this book club. And we are going to let you know what our schedule looks like, which book we're going to be addressing next. In fact, if Nani, if you're not too busy, would you like to let our viewers know what book we're going to be reading together next with our listeners? I think you're muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I was just saying that tomorrow we are releasing an episode on Chismis with Jen and Nani, our exclusive private podcast platform with my best friend, Caitlin Demacion, who led us in our first book study where all three of us read America's in the Heart by Carlos Bulosan. And as I have said many times in that episode and leading up to that episode, I think this book is just really like a rite of passage for all Filipino Americans looking to connect with their identity, connect with their ancestral roots, and just learn more, especially if you're a Filipino American in California, about how your family's history kind of ties into this story and the Manang generation. So we did a lot of digging. We did a very deep dive into that book, and it was really fun to kind of just hear all of it. It's one thing to read a book by yourself and just have your own thoughts about it, but it's another thing to read it with a group of people who is aligned and who are all kind of trying to find different angles of the book that all relate back to this one subject that we're trying to dive into, which is, diving into our lineage. And so it was nice to have other people to bounce those ideas off of, and for us to all kind of come together and share our notes about it and notice what we did and didn't pick up about the story. And so we liked that so much that we ended up deciding to make this a regular thing and do a quarterly book club. So the next reading that we'll be doing a study on coming up in the next few months, while Tifa is in the off season, is Little Manila is in the Heart by Dawn Mabalan, which is who Stacy just received an award from. So in her honor, we are continuing on kind of the legacy, I think, that Carlos started by writing this book, and following the timeline of events in terms of, generations and how his story has translated through the different generations of Filipino Americans. And if you all, again, tuned into Ate Allison's episode with us or interview on the Tifa Project, she talks a lot about her relationship with Dawn and, how they were great friends. Dawn is since passed, if you didn't catch on to that. So her story is definitely one that we want to learn about and dig into regardless, but also it seems relevant. So yes, join in for that. And if you want to join us for that next book study, we're going to be breaking it down into 3 different parts because it is a pretty long book. Little Manila is in the Heart, if I didn't already say that. Yes, go on biasboba.com and buy us a boba, leave a comment saying I'm in, I want to do the book club, something indicating that you are down to join, and we will send you the details for that.
Yes. Thank you so much, Nani, for that explanation. And I know that we are 15 minutes in with announcements, so I am going to wrap up on that now. And Nani, I would love for you to lead us in prompting Kirby for our presentation today.
Yes. So the book that we're using, the coloring book that we're going to be doing today, is called Color Our Roots.
Woo woo! Here it is.
We all have here. And I think we're just going to go ahead and dive in. Kirby, if you want to go ahead and get started. Again, our theme today, or our theme this month rather, is empowering the Pinay. And today we really want to dive into the pre-colonial Pinay and see, through this coloring book and through the different terms and phrases that you have highlighted here, how can we relate back to that theme of empowering the Pinay and learning about what we were like, what our cultural narrative was like pre-colonization.
Yeah, I don't know where to begin. Just a reminder for those who may not know in our community that our ancestors were very much matriarchal. The women have, they have a central role in the community, in the society, even in the spirituality of our ancestors. If you're not familiar with it, because now we're mostly Christians, and the Catholic Church is very patriarchal. so back then it was the opposite. So our ancestors our women are very at the center of the society, at the center of everything actually. If you see in the coloring book, there's actually, or even in the other book, you'll see depictions of women who were the babaylans, the priestesses, the spiritual leaders of the community, the healers. Let me actually show you the colored version in the other book. Where is it? There we go. The babaylans. There also were warriors. Actually, a lot of people. It's funny because there's this TV show in the Philippines called Amaya about pre-colonial Philippines that was a big hit. And the premise of the story was that she wanted to be a warrior. It's like Mulan. She wanted to be a warrior, but she's a woman. She's a princess. So that's kind of like good show, but the story is not really
wrong message.
I don't know. Yeah, wrong message, because women were actually warriors back then, and there's a depiction of a women warrior in the book as well. Yeah.
Interesting. So that's interesting to think that we made such a switch, or that I guess colonization was just so impactful on our community to kind of reverse those roles. And today we think of our narrative as very submissive, very obedient, very inferior, I guess, to the male. And it's just very interesting how before that it was the complete opposite, and our culture was so strong in like these matriarchal dynamics like you're explaining, which I think that we can all attest to in our own families, whether it be our relationships with our grandmas or our moms, aunties, whoever, where that still lives on, but somehow, like as a culture, we have not been known for that in some centuries.
I think the question I have for you, Kirby, is why? Why did colonization feel the need to, change it from a matriarchal to a patriarchal society?
Yeah, it was mostly because they were threatened by women in the Philippines. So they were threatened. They knew that women can lead. So to justify their conquest, to make it easier for them to conquer the Philippines, they really hunted down the female leaders of the islands. So the babaylans there were stories of the babaylans being chopped into pieces and fed to crocodiles. So that's actually a book from the belly of the crocodile by Tita Lenny. So the babaylans were actually hunted down to really what do you call this? Take out the leadership in the Philippines. So even though we also had male leaders, but the women held them together. So they really wanted to decapitate the female leadership in the islands back then, to make it easier for Christianity to come in and mold the minds of the people of the islands to accepting Christianity. There's the book. From the belly
actually, and I want to
crocodile's belly.
And I want to turn this over to Stacey as well, because one thing I learned from you, Stacey, when we were talking about like even if you hear my dog slurping in the background, that's what's going on right now. But where's I going with that? Oh, so one thing I learned from you, Stacey, is that part of as we were getting colonized, the women and families who wanted to, I guess, appear more affluent or be be one with the Spaniards, part of that was adapting to, the colonial ways of wanting to adapt to the Christian faith. And so can you tell us a little bit more about that for people who hadn't heard that conversation with us in the past?
Oh my God, I feel like it's a comp exam question. I'm sorry, Jen. I know I shouldn't treat it that way, but my goodness, I get so nervous.
It's been a long night.
It's been a long night, and Film history is wrapping up this week. But there's how many thousands of islands that make up the Philippine archipelago, and so with just within that diversity as well, we have different ethno-linguistic groups, and they all have different religious or philosophical, spiritual backgrounds. So the idea where the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch, who else came in, Kirby? The English, right? All of those European fools are coming in with their own interpretations of, I know my language is very informal right now, but they all came in to the Philippines with their own interpretations of Christianity. And they were all, this male heterosis gendered interpretation of Christianity, patriarchal Christianity. And so it's different as you jump from one island to the next, because we have moments of blending where there's Buddhist traditions mixing with Christian beliefs. And then you have folk Catholicism, where some women still retain that spiritual leadership position, but it's more familial based. So within that family or that barrio, right, Kirby? You have some Filipinas who are still holding true to like reading the rice water or reading the candle fortunes, but they're also Christian. They still adhere to some Christian identities. And then you also have like saints that the Spanish introduced, but then the Filipinas take it on in like their own way. So the way that they interpret saints or the people that they choose to uplift to sainthood, it's blending like different cultural and philosophical and spiritual practices. But again, at the heart of many of these communities, spiritual communities, Filipinas are still practicing certain aspects of the old ways, and they're maintaining it through female lines. So there's that aspect, but then Christianity was just really it's just really whack, because what the priests and the missionaries wanted to do was to eliminate the gender binary. So there's no in between, and women must submit, which is really hypocritical, because if you like actually study the early Christian, like how Christian society came about, you have a lot of female too, and female martyrs, but when these jerk males wanted to make the Bible, they're like, what stories are you going to use, guys? Right? They had examples of Christian female Christian martyrs, and female Christian saints, and female Christian leaders. But they're like, no, that doesn't fit our gender binary. We're not about that life. So I know I sound really informal.
I love how unfiltered you are right now. You're like, you know what? I've been talking all month. Let me just get to the point.
The more candid, the better, Stacey.
Oh my goodness. I know. Doesn't sound as professional, but you understand, like, I just want to make it relatable too, right? So they decide like, oh, we're not going to include female leadership in the Christian world in our Bible, or the first text of the Bible, because we don't want that disruption of the gender binary dynamic. So it's the same thing in the Philippines. So you still have, even with Christianity, having an onslaught in the archipelago, you still have Filipinas taking on the mantle of what it actually means to be a spiritual leader, despite colonialism coming in to transform and manipulate the ways that they knew spirituality beforehand. So.
Thank you, Stacey.
You're welcome.
So I think with that, since if we're just going to go through the book here, we can start maybe, Kuya, if you want to walk us through who were the Luzones.
Oh, cool.
And get an idea of what back to you. Yes. And so we can get an idea of what the pre-colonial society was like, in Luzon at least, and then we can dive into the actual coloring activity with our markers. Hope everyone, this is your chance to get your markers ready.
I got
my
colored pencils here.
Perfect.
And also, real quickly, I just want to give a shout out to some people who've been commenting. We have Jason here saying Louis.
Hey.
I don't know if that's a shout out directly to you, Kirby, but there you go. And then also shout out to John. So thank you guys for joining us today, and also to people that are just viewing. But feel free to make yourselves visible by commenting and saying hi. But with that said, Kirby, go ahead and walk us through.
Yay. So Luwid is actually the Kapampangan of Mabuhay. So Tagalog we say Mabuhay, in Kapampangan we say Luwid. And that's actually my uncle, my mom's cousin, who
hey,
babysat me back then.
Oh, how sweet. Hey,
Hi,
Uncle.
Hi, Bap. But yeah, so today, when we hear Luzon, we think of the biggest island in the Philippines. But pre-colonially, Luzon was actually specific to the communities around Manila Bay. Actually, Manila Bay was the actual Luzon, what our ancestors called Luzon, and it's where all the rivers meet. So all the rivers from Central Luzon, Northern Luzon, and Manila and Southern Luzon all meet in Manila Bay, and that's what they call Luzon in Kapampangan, or Luzon or hold on, Luzon in Kapampangan, or Luzon with an O in Tagalog. And so the Luzones that were recorded by Europeans were actually the ancestors of today's Kapampangan and Tagalog societies. So a lot of people, what do you call this? How do I explain this? But yeah, oh no, where's my camera? What's going on?
Oh no.
There we go. So yeah, so according to historical linguistics, the Kapampangan people of Luzon were there in Central Luzon and even Southern Luzon as early as 5,000 years ago, and then 2,000 years later, the Tagalog people migrated to Luzon from the Visayas. Actually, for those who may not know, the Tagalog people actually branched out from the Visayans. That's why there's a lot. It's interesting if you actually look at Tagalog language. The grammar is close to the Visayans, but the vocabulary is close to the Kapampangan. So it shows how they were the bridge between the two groups. So yeah, those are the Luzones who were also the first Filipinos to set foot in the U.S. That's why we're celebrating Filipino American, or commemorating this month as Filipino American History Month, because they set foot here last October, in October of last week. Just kidding. October 18.
It's like all the Filipino American History Months are just like a blur now.
Yeah. So those were the Luzones. They were the topic of the first coloring book that I made. Yeah. And
that's awesome.
As
I was skimming through this, you have to tell me, because this is the person I'm going to be coloring. Who is this person?
Oh, cool.
Here we go.
I added her. She's technically not Luzones because she's from Pangasinan, where Stacy his family's from, and my grandma from my dad's side is from. Yeah, so that's Urduha, the warrior princess in Pangasinan, who was also in. If you want to learn more, she's actually in Stacy's book.
Okay,
Yeah.
Stacy, you better put in the chat what the name of your book is so we can promote you, because that's what we do here. But Kirby, continue.
Yeah, so she was a warrior princess. She was from the tales of Ibn Battuta, if you know him. He was like the Marco Polo before Marco Polo was born. So he was this epic traveler from North Africa who traveled across Asia and visited different kingdoms in Asia. And he talked about this amazing princess who was a warrior princess who would never marry unless she was defeated in a duel. And as far as we know she was never defeated in a duel, so she never married. And she inherited her father's kingdom. And she has this big ambition of leading armies to actually invade India. So she was that epic. Yeah.
I am her.
That's my reimagined Urdu.
Stacey's like, no, I'm her.
Well, Stacy, because you wrote about her, do you have any thoughts you want to add in addition to what Kirby shared?
Oh, thanks, Kirby, for shouting out my book.
Yeah. What is it?
See, the thing is that a lot of European white scholars, they argue that that's not a real primary source. Ibn's work. And so they argue that, well, maybe that person just meant Southeast Asia in general. Who are we to say that the Philippines actually had their own royalty, right? And one that spans that far back, that was that expansive and that powerful. So a lot of historians argue against it, saying it's just a fairy tale. It's like mythology.
Yeah.
It's just fancy poetry for someone who maybe went to Southeast Asia. Yeah, because they also argue, well, that's impossible. Europeans got there first. When you can see all these super racially prejudiced, biases as to how they decide whether or not Urduha should have a space in Filipino history. But she's just amazing. And yes, Pangasinan. Shout out to Supayo.
Yeah, actually, even though Western scholars are arguing that she's not real, she's not a real history. If you actually look at the oral traditions in Pangasinan and even the indigenous in the mountain province or in the Cordilleras, there's actually a lot of oral traditions that matches the story of Urduha. So, who's to say if she wasn't that person?
Yeah. So, okay. So before we go into more of the individual characters and start coloring,
I can't color yet. I totally started coloring.
Color away.
Okay.
But
let me think of which
so
one to
heads
color.
up, Kuya, I think that we will ask for how much time do we have allotted here, Jen, till 7:30?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so
I mean, we can go longer,
Okay.
but I think 30 minutes is fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you can just choose, Kuya, like top 3 of the characters in here to focus on
okay.
and tell the stories about that we can color along. And before you do that, according to your book here, there are 3 different kind of social classes in the pre-colonial society: the ruling class, the free people, and the servants and the slaves. So do you want to just give a quick breakdown into that to give more of a thorough explanation of pre-colonial Luzones society, and then we can get into the 3 main characters that you want to focus on.
Cool. Thanks. So this is the picture. I'm showing the one in the other book because it's colored. It's printed in color. So these are the ruling class, or 2 of the queens back then. So in Tagalog, they were known as the Maginoo class, or the nobility. And in Kapampangan, there's actually 2 terms for it. One is Mangapya, which means nobility, and Mapiang Sugi, which is the royalty. So like a little bit above the nobility. And they were the Datus, the kings and queens, the lords, which they called Ginoo. Actually, today we use Ginoo to say Mr. in Tagalog, and Ginang to say Miss or Mrs. But actually, Ginoo is actually gender neutral. So a lot of this pre-colonial terms were gender neutral, and then when the Spaniards came, that's when we started, having this binary,
separating
and then
them.
suddenly there's another term for women. Those were the ruling class. And then the free people, there's actually different layers or levels of being free in pre-colonial Philippines, or specifically in Luzon. It's the same in the Visayas too, but this book is about Luzon. But there's the free people, there's the Timawa in Tagalog, it's also Timawa in Kapampangan. There we go. And they actually love wearing indigo because indigo was believed to be very antibacterial back then. So when they go out in the fields, they wear indigo. And this is actually, on the other side is a depiction from a primary source from the Boxer Codex of free women in Luzon. Yeah, so that's how they look like. And then that's my chibi version of it. So the free people, Timawa means free. Another group of free people, which is actually often mistaken to mean nobility, is Maharlika. So we actually hear a lot of Filipinos say Maharlika as nobility, but that's a mistranslation by a white guy. And then
white guy.
Yes. And then got perpetuated.
I didn't know that. I definitely see that term all over Instagram.
Yeah. So the term is not wrong. It's just that they used it to refer to a kingdom that never existed, or to the nobility. But actually, Maharlika was in Tagalog is Maharlika, in Kapampangan is Mardika, in Tausug, if I'm not mistaken, it's Mahardika, and in Indonesia it's Merdeka. It's the free people. So they were the ones who, in the Philippines, they were the ones who were formerly slaves but were given or granted freedom. And so moving on to the servants and the slaves. So this is the depiction. That's some more hard.
I just thought, before you go ahead, I think I just kind of, one thing that just continues to stick in my mind, because you know how nowadays people are more vocal, or people are more open about their pronouns. And I just think it's so interesting how when some people look at these pronouns, they're like, oh my gosh, like they, them, his, her, whatever. But I love how, from a historical perspective, like we actually were gender fluid to begin with. It's just that with colonization, they wanted to make us into, they want us to put us in certain gender roles.
Compartmentalized.
And so I think, that's sort of what stood out to me and you sharing. But go ahead and continue. I colored in the black hair in case anyone's wondering. I
cool. Yeah.
So she's I'm going ahead.
I don't have a sharpener, so I'm trying to be light about this. But anyway, continue.
Okay. So next we have the servants and the slaves. I put servants and slaves because our idea of slavery today is very much tainted by Western slavery. That is, chattel slavery, where slaves were not humans. This is not to defend the slavery back in the pre-colonial Philippines, but just give you a better idea of how they were. You can actually there's actually a lot of fluidity in the social classes in the Philippines back then. A slave can actually rise up, by merit, and achieve or be the datu, or the ruler of his community, if the people chose him to be the ruler. If he showed, or he or she or they showed the ability to lead. So the datu and the other way around too. The datu can actually, or a king can actually be deposed and be condemned into slavery if he or she is fucked up. If he fucked up being a king or queen, then they would. Sorry, that's not a good word to say.
No, it's
children.
okay.
Hey.
Again, the more candid, the better.
Yeah, I know we're doing like children's book, but we're all adults here, so
We encourage it. Yes. Oh, but if
Cool.
there are kids watching, then
Oh my God,
sorry,
sorry.
your ears.
But yeah, so if they messed up, if the leaders were messed up, if they were corrupted, or in Luzon, in the pre-colonial societies of Luzon, if a king was corrupted or even just greedy with money, he can actually they can actually be deposed and be what do you call this? Condemned into slavery, if not executed. And then his whole depending on how grave his crime was to the community, his whole family could also lose their status as nobility. So it was very fluid back then, as opposed to today, where we have political dynasties who are still in power without, actually serving the
Regardless of what
community.
they do, yeah.
Yeah. So it was, yeah. So that's there's actually a lot of levels of being slaves as well. There's or servants. There's the ones who are inside the house, and the ones who had their own houses. So there were different types of slaves as well. And there's also like this in Kapampangan culture. There's also this what do you call this? Different terms that refers to freeing slaves. So even though the society has slaves, there's this heroic terms like luwalu, fighting for the defenseless, or even ikabus is a word that means like you're the one who is determined to free slaves no matter what. So there's a very complicated society that that we need to learn more about, because a lot of us don't have an idea of what our ancestors were, apart from how Europeans always depict them as these savages who did not even know anything until they got there.
Yeah,
But,
it's interesting how the kind of different points that you pointed out,
Yeah.
it sounds like there was this system, this social system of general like accountability,
Yes,
in
was a big
terms
deal.
of like overthrowing people in power if they did something, to wrong their community or
Yeah.
harmful to the community. And then once colonization came in and changed everything, it was just all about the power and remaining in
Yeah.
power for those who kind of imposed upon this system that we already had going, that was already fair and again promoted accountability. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to note like the different values that kind of switched during that
Yeah.
time.
Actually, my favorite part of that thing was how, in a lot of cases, when the constituents, the citizens of a barangay, a community, a datu, is not satisfied with the leadership of their datu, they actually just move out. They just abandon the datu. They just bye.
Oh,
They're moving on to
wow.
the other city, the other town,
Yeah.
the other village.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of accountability was a big deal for our ancestors back then, which sadly is not a big deal right now in the Philippines. But
Yeah.
the pre-colonial societies of the Philippines were not perfect, but they were definitely not savages or this dark period in our history. In fact, if you compare it to how colonialism was, it was, in my opinion, a way better society before colonialism.
Yeah. It's interesting to learn about this and kind of imagine this society that was pre-colonization and then look at the Philippines today and just think about how corrupt everything is and how, just corroded all of that, those social values have become. And I know that we're giving obviously a very abbreviated version of what
Yeah.
happened and, in a nutshell, kind of synthesizing the story, but to really dive into, in other resources and at another time, how that changed.
Yeah, that's like, I really appreciate you sharing that, because it gets me to think about like, wow, we did used to have accountability with one another, but then because of colonization, like even after being a quote unquote independent country at this point, we still carry on the colonizers, I guess you can say, values of like getting power and staying in power for as long as you can. So it's really interesting to see how that has that has formed the Philippines and what we're still seeing today. Real quickly, want to give a couple of shout outs to some of our viewers here. Christian here is watching from Angeles City.
Oh, hey.
So thanks so much for joining us. Also, we have Casimir here, who is a big Kirby fan.
Hey.
So
Hello.
shout out to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And now I want to go ahead and turn it to Stacy, because I saw you nod a lot, and seeing if there's anything else you want to add in addition to what we talked about so far.
Oh, if people are interested, there is a reading of, it's called The Embarrassment of Slavery, Controversies over Bondage and Nationalism in the American Colonial Philippines by Michael Salman. So a lot of people don't know. When you Google Philippine history, what comes up, Kirby, right, is always about World War II. It's always about World War II and the United States and them just like protecting the Philippines. MacArthur marching in because he's peaceful, right? That's the number one thing when you Google Philippine history. But people don't actually know just how complex the slave system was in the Philippines, even prior to Spanish colonialism. Because even though the Spanish and the Americans said, we're bringing you civilization, we're bringing you democracy, in reality, they perpetuated and manipulated the slave systems that were already present. In really disgusting and even more twisted ways. Because, of, again, the slave system, who would want that? Even pre-colonial Philippines. So we're not romanticizing, like Kirby said, pre-colonial Philippines to that extent, but it's just recognizing with the introduction of American and Spanish colonialism, they took advantage of those systems and completely twisted them so that it would fit their hierarchy of power and color and race. Right. So even though the United States said, "Oh, we're coming in because you're benevolent, colonizers, we're so sweet and give you democracy," in reality, they saw the old school slave system still happening in the Philippines. They didn't really do anything to stop it.
Yeah, they actually just changed the name of the system. They actually, for example, when the Spaniards came, they abolished slavery in the Philippines, but what they actually did was just change the name, change the terms. They were not called slaves, but they were still enslaved.
Wow.
And they introduced African slavery.
Yes.
Right.
Wow.
And so I think at a certain point in Manila, I'm forgetting Kirby, Manila used to be called. But at a certain point, there were so many African slaves imported to the Philippines, the Spanish and the Portuguese. 20% of the population in Manila at that period was African slavery. 20% of the population was about African slavery in Manila.
Yeah.
But that history is us too.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Stacy, you're freezing a little bit. I don't know.
Oh no.
So what I heard is that in part of the slavery that was in the Philippines, 20% of it at one point was of African American or African descent. That was also there, which I had no idea. I did not this is the first time I'm hearing this, like African slavery in the Philippines.
Yeah. So even the British, when they invaded the Philippines, they brought not necessarily slaves, but workers from India to help them conquer the Philippines. And the thing is, they did not even they were promised payments and stuff when they go to the Philippines, but when they got there, they actually did not pay them. So a lot of the Indian sepoys actually what do you call this, switched sides or left the British camp and what do you call this, became part of the Filipino community. Actually, there's a huge there's a huge community of Filipinos who have Indian descent because of this, because of the workers that and the indentured servants that the British brought to the Philippines when they occupied Manila for 2 years. So there's a lot of this interesting history that we don't even know. When you Google the Philippine history, like Stacey said, all you see is MacArthur and the beaches of Leyte.
And I will return. I mean, that's after the fact. So
that's his claim.
Wow.
But the thing is, if you think about it, why would you return if you did not leave us in the first place?
Yeah.
True. Yeah, that's interesting. I never understood the lineage between Indian and Indian Filipinos, I guess. So that's another new thing that I learned today.
I want to share my progress so far. So
I forgot that.
I'm coloring her hair, her skin. I'm keeping it light because I don't have a sharpener for my pencils. But I colored her skin a dark brown like me. And one thing that I often see is lighter Filipinas. And for someone that is like brown skinned, I've always felt kind of self-conscious about that, so much that even my mom even perpetuated it by giving me papaya soap and telling me to lighten my skin.
Yeah.
all the time. And so anyway, I decided to make her my skin color. So there you go. That's what I'm sharing.
Cool. Yay. Thanks. I haven't started mine. I haven't decided who to color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whenever
you're
you're
one
ready,
of those-
yeah.
What's that?
Jen, you're one of those students and that does the like you're the teacher's still talking, but you're like doing the assignment already. You're one of those students.
I know. That's so cool, though.
None of us has started yet. So Kuya, let us know which character we should start with.
I mean, it's up to you.
I would say pick one
I
that
can't
looks
decide.
fantastic.
I
Yeah.
want to start with a lot of them. Wait, I can't see Stacy. What is
Yeah,
Stacy
Stacy,
showing?
you're lagging. Real quickly, while Stacy, well, we get back to Stacy, we got a quick shout out here from Mala. We love the coloring book, so thank you so much. And of course, if you
Hi,
don't have
Kuya.
your coloring book just yet, you could actually visit Kirby's website, kirbyaraullo.com, and use promo code TJN15 to get a discounted copy of your book. And we also have Nahia, I think is, let me know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Also, just sending some claps. So thank you for joining us live. Basically, if you are joining us for the first time, we are going through Kirby's books and sharing a little bit of history based on, what we find in these books. And so other than that, I think that's all I have to share. Nani, anything else? Anything else? Like, where are we at with our coloring book activity?
Yes, Kuya, unless you're ready to give us the first character that you want to color, I want to know who this one is.
Oh, cool. We can start with that one. That's
Ooh.
Babaylan. In Visaya, or the Visayan languages, they call it Babaylan. In Tagalog, it's Catalonan, and in Kapampangan, it's Katunan and Mamaluyan. So they were the spiritual leaders of the community, the priestesses or the healers of the community, the one who took care of the community. Yeah, so they were the ones that the colonizers chopped up and fed to the crocodiles. But yeah, they were the center of the spiritual life in our community, and yeah.
I wonder if the Captain Hook and alligator or crocodile story was inspired by the Philippines. Now that you think about it, that could be a thing.
Yeah. So what is the deal with crocodiles? I know that when we've talked to people in the past about like batok and doing the tribal tattoos, they say that snakes and crocodiles are
common,
are like representative of our ancestors, but I'm not sure why. No one has ever explained that or what the tie is there.
So it's kind of different between the different ethnicities in the Philippines. There's some variations, but the crocodiles in general were seen as sacred in pre-colonial Philippines. You'll see them in the swords, in the kampilan, and in the boats, in the warships, what I can share with you is the one from the Kapampangan perspective is actually the Earth, the this planet we live on, these islands, were actually the back of this crocodile called Dátû.
Well, that's interesting.
So it's interesting how the Spaniards used that sacred animal, that crocodile, a sacred creature, to devour our spiritual leaders. And yeah.
Wow, interesting. So same with the snakes as well?
Yes, yeah. And yeah, so there's actually a lot of snakes too, and dragons in our pre-colonial society. There's actually like a blurred line between what's a snake and what's a dragon in our mythologies. So
interesting. Yeah, I have 2 pet snakes actually, right?
Oh, cool.
She does. I've seen her feed her snakes.
Jen has met them.
I have seen them feed. Real quick, I want to backtrack because I think Stacy was trying to say something earlier. So Stacy, did you want? No. Okay. I'll skip you over.
No, Stacy, go.
You're welcome.
Oh no! Oh my goodness. No, because my internet is really shaky. But
okay, it's better now.
Okay. That I just wanted to chime in about when the Spanish would feed the babaylan bodies to the crocodile. It was meant to also insult. Because they knew that our people respected those creatures and we revered them. So it was double insult to feed our spiritual leaders to our ancestors or to our our animal spirits.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that's just up, man.
Yeah.
Now that you put it that way, that's pretty, that's pretty messed up. We got a question here from Elaine.
cool.
Is some part of the Philippine island also under, and you're gonna have to help me pronounce this, Kirby. So would you like to, yes, so that's Empire. Would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, so
Thanks,
it's
Elaine,
still,
for the question.
thanks. It's still being debated by historians whether the parts of the Philippines were in fact directly under the Majapahit Empire, which is centered in what is now Indonesia. The Majapahit is perhaps the most legendary empire in Southeast Asia. Yeah, that it was like the Romans of Southeast Asia that conquered a bunch of islands in Southeast Asia. So in some records, they do mention that they that within their influence, their sphere of influence within their territories included Sulu in the Mindanao and Saludong or Salurong or Manila, what is Manila now. But we're not really sure how direct that control was, because pre-colonially the kingdoms in Southeast Asia were not how European kingdoms are. They're with static borders. Back then, it was like overlapping sovereignties, overlapping territories, if anything, and it's always fluid. So at one point, what we know from pre-colonial Luzon is that at one point the royal families of Luzon did intermarry with the royal families of the Majapahit, and they're actually in the coloring book towards the end.
Ooh. Which
So
you
this-
all can get a copy at Kirby's website,
right
kirbyaraullo.com. Ooh, love it. And then you can use the promo code TJN15.
Yeah, so where is it? Oh no. But yeah, so there were some intermarriages, but we're not really sure how direct that control was. So we're not really sure if the Philippines was a colony or just ally. And this is the depiction of the couple that from the last emperor of the Majapahit, Angka Wijaya, who married Sasaban. Sorry, she's my ancestor, but I forgot her name. Because it's different names. In Tagalog, she's Sasaban. In Kapampangan, she's Sasamban. And in Kapampangan, Sasamban means the worshipped one. So her name was actually her title, the worshipped one. And she married the ruler of Majapahit, whose name was Angka Wijaya. So awesome. There were some intermarriages between a lot of royal families in Southeast Asia. So this notion that the Philippines was isolated from the rest of the world before Magellan came was actually, we all know it's false, but if you study the royal families of Southeast Asia, a lot of them were actually related to one another, just like how European royalties were intermarried with one another.
Yeah. That actually
Thanks for the question. That's a good question.
Yes,
yeah.
That question. While we're finishing coloring, if you guys have any more questions, drop them in the chat, and Leah can answer those. I think that we can spend.
I still haven't started.
Let's play a game. Who can color the fastest? I
know, right? There's no way that I'm gonna finish, but
here's mine. But
that looks beautiful.
Yeah, so I put you mentioned indigo was what they wore, so I decided to color her dress with an indigo color. If you guys can see that color closely, I just didn't know what the color this shield, right? That's
dark brown, if I'm not mistaken.
Dark brown. Okay, so I'm gonna color.
From the ones I've seen, they're dark brown.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna make her like my face, but darker. So just as a reminder, as I give Kirby and Nani a break to color, just as a reminder, if you are joining us today, this show is hosted by the Filipino American Women Project, which is a podcast show that is well over 100 plus episodes now since summer. And we actually had a spin-off series called Chismes with Jen and Nani, where Nani and I run this private podcast through our website, biasboba.com. And basically, this is our opportunity to collaborate with past guests to present or to share whatever they want to share on our show. And so after this live show and after our last episode coming out tomorrow on the Filipino American Women Project, we are going to be off season for the rest of the year. This is really the last time you're going to be seeing us live. I mean, unless Nani and I really miss each other and we miss you guys, you might come back on. But you can actually join us in the off season on our exclusive podcast show, Chismes with Jen and Nani, on biasboba.com. And there, one thing we're going to do to continue to maintain community with all of you is to start a book club. And so the next book we're going to be reading, or not the next book, but the first book we're going to be reading that we want to invite you to join us is Little Manila is in the Heart. And then Nani, can you quickly remind me the name of the author?
Dawn Mabong.
Yes. And so that book is a hefty book. It's nearly 500 pages. And luckily it's in a 3-part series. So we're actually going to be breaking down that book per part. And we're going to be doing that in our upcoming book club. So if you want to be a part of that conversation, you want to learn with us and grow with us and read this book together, all you have to do is go to biasboba.com. I don't have boba with me on right now, but I do have chicharron, because that's what I grew up with. I know Nani's the one who actually managed to have boba in her hand, but we love boba on the show. Oh, and so does Stacy. So shout out to Stacy. Okay, so 2 of us, 2 out of 4 have boba.
I had one right before this.
Yeah, for the record,
it's gone now.
Yeah, had boba. I'm the only one that doesn't have boba, because where I'm currently located, the nearest boba shop is an hour away. So now you're all wondering, where is Jen? Conversation for another time. Actually, you can hear that conversation on Chismes with Jen and Nani. But if you'd like to be part of our book club, go ahead and join us at biasboba.com. Just buy us even 1 cup of boba. Say you want to be part of our book club, and we will send you more information from there. And so anyway, that's a little quick announcement I want to give about our book club, especially if you want to join us in the off season. Of course, as a reminder, especially if you're joining us for the first time right now, we are working on Kirby's coloring book, in which you can get a discount price of 15% off, I believe, Kirby, if you visit his website, KirbyAraullo.com. Use the promo code TJN15, which really stands for Chismes with Jen and Nani, our exclusive podcast show. But go ahead and check that out and take advantage of that discount. Okay, that is my announcements. What do you guys want to do next? How's everyone? I know that wasn't enough time for people to color, but how's everyone doing with their coloring book so far?
That's okay. I'm still working my way through. So here we are. And I don't think that we're going to get through 3 characters. So Kuya, if you want to just maybe give some background information and the name, obviously, of this one that we're doing.
Which one are you doing?
We're doing this one here.
Oh, yeah. So I gave the background earlier. See, this is not a specific person in history. This is like my general depiction of the Babaylans, the Mamaluyans or Catalunans. But yeah.
Love it.
Sorry, I'm still trying to color mine.
Yeah, if we're not talking, y'all, it's because we're coloring. So
I know when you said, Jen, when you said whoever can color this, it made me so nervous.
I know.
Sorry. No pressure.
No rush.
I know this.
That was not this is not a final exam or anything, Stacey. You already won your award. You can take a break for a minute.
Yeah.
I think what's more important in our last final moments together, Kuya, is if you want to give any other highlights to any of the other characters in this book that we won't get to color today, but maybe folks can go ahead and do that on their own time after we get offline here. My laptop is about to die also.
Oh, no.
So we want to be mindful of everyone's time and also capacity. So yes, is there anyone else that you want to point out and give us a little bit of background on?
Yeah. So when you asked me earlier to pick 3 characters, I had 3 in mind that I'm related to, according to the oral histories and traditions that were passed down. So one of them was this one. I actually started coloring her, but it did not look right. This is why you can't trust Western companies to make colors that matches our skin tones.
So snap, tell them.
But yeah, so I was trying to color this one. In Tagalog, her name was Dayang Kalangitan. In Kapampangan, some say it's Kalangitan too, but some say it's also Banwa. And her name, literally in Tagalog and Kapampangan, it means the embodiment of the heavens or the universe. And she was the ruler of Luzon, of Tondo and the kingdoms of Luzon in the early or late 1400s. And she was the ruler during the golden, what a lot of the older historians believe to be the golden age of Luzon before colonialism. So when Luzon was at the center of international trade with China, with Japan, with India, with the Arabs. So she was the queen back then. And she ruled, she's like Urduha, so she ruled in her own right. She wasn't, you know how there's a lot of, if you look at European, even The Crown in Netflix, you see the Queen Elizabeth or Queen Victoria in England who were became queen because there was nobody else to inherit the crown. In our societies back then, that's why I want to highlight her, was because back then in Luzon or in different parts of the Philippines, women can actually inherit the throne. Regardless of their gender, regardless of their order of their birth, if the community thinks that they deserve the crown, they inherit the crown. And so yeah, that's Dayang Kalangitan, the
Interesting.
embodiment of the
So
heavens.
before you move on to the next one, I have a
Mhm.
quick question, and it just reminded me of what you just said. Reminded me of the Trece series and
Mhm.
how they did the whole thing about the seventh child of the seventh child, or something
Mhm.
like that. Is that related to what you're talking about, or is that something completely different?
I think that was something completely different. Because it's more poetic, the seventh child of the seventh child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah. So I think that was specific to the storyline of Trece.
Okay.
But yeah, there was no in pre-colonial. That's why, or I'm not gonna go into a tangent, but that's why in pre-colonial Philippines we don't have any specific rules on who can inherit the crown, as long as the person has the what do you call this, has the ability to lead, and they have proven to be a good leader. Then the community would choose him to be a leader, or her to be a leader, or choose them to be a leader.
Mhm.
Another thing I want to mention too is that gender in pre-colonial Philippines, and especially in Luzon, since we're talking about Luzon, was very fluid. So some people were, there's a lot of terms actually that survived about the different gender and sexuality identities in pre-colonial Luzon. I'm not gonna go over a lot of them, but again, um, queer people in pre-colonial Philippines were actually seen as sacred, as special, as this
Yeah.
very spiritual being. Actually, even the babaylans, the Catalonas, the Mamaluyan, some of them were born, with a male body. Um,
Mm.
yeah, gender was very fluid. It wasn't boxed and limited like how Western
Today.
society depicts it today.
Mm.
But yeah, so that's
Important to know.
gender.
Yes.
And actually, since we're talking about gender, in Luzon, the indigenous beliefs, the diwatas, the goddesses, or the gods and goddesses, the deities of our ancestors, were also gender fluid. Every one of them. So even though today we depict certain gods and goddesses as a certain gender,
Mm.
pre-colonially their gender was, the same god can be seen by a different community as a woman, and the next village over, he's seen as a man. So it's interesting how even the spiritual beings, the gods and goddesses, were also gender neutral. And yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that's where the Filipino pronouns, because even today,
Mhm.
a lot of us put like Sia in
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
bios now that Instagram asks for your pronouns. And so I wonder if that's where that comes from, that term.
Mhm.
Well, I know I got a head start, but I finished my coloring.
Wow.
So
Yay,
I
beautiful.
yes, I actually like colored the shield with like black and brown to kind of darken it a little more.
Yay.
But I didn't have a sharpener, so I'm trying to like make use of like the colors I have left. And so this is my girl. And of course, thank you, Kirby, for just contributing to our history. And one thing that we talked about in your exclusive interview on Chismes with Jen and Nani is that, don't just think of history as like centuries ago. Think of it as
Yeah.
today, like we are writing history today. And you
Mhm.
literally are doing that for us,
Thank you.
And another thing that I remember you brought up in our conversation at the beginning of this month is that, in Western society, we often get discredited for our oral history because what's not written is quote unquote not true. And
Yeah.
so, even though we're in a way we're doing what we have to do to be considered quote unquote credible, I love that, at least with our show, the Filipino American Women Project, we celebrate oral history and having, conversations and an exchange of stories. And so I just want to, thank you for contributing to, Filipinx led media and content creation with your YouTube channel, as well as your books here. And I hope to our viewers today that you'll consider getting a copy yourself. There's actually a book first that you can get, as well as a coloring book that accompanies this book. And you could check it out at Kirby's website, KirbyAraullo.com. Remember, you could use the promo code TJN15.
Yes.
And so we do have like a couple questions here, but unfortunately we're going to have to wrap up soon. So Nani, I just want to check in with you and see if there's anything else you wanted to ask Kirby or anything else you want to share before we wrap up.
No, I think that we covered all the bases. And again, while we're in the off season after this, weekends, we're more than willing to come back and do bonus episodes for you guys. And so if this is something that you really enjoyed and want to dive deeper into, or want to do a part 2 where you just hang out with us and continue to color, we're down to do that.
Oh, wow.
So let us know. I can't see the comments, but Jen, I'm sure will share. And yeah, other than that, thank you, Kuya, for your time. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, for
I'm
the
still
lesson.
coloring.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so Stacy, if you want to show your coloring so far before we wrap, I know like y'all didn't get enough time and I was like totally coloring, but love it. Wow, your colors are really bright. Are you using markers?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow, those are pretty. Oh, wow.
Love it.
Cool.
See, look what you sparked for us, Kirby. You helped us create art, so thank
Thanks.
you.
Yay.
Would you like to get to some quick like I don't know if you call them like thunderbolt questions, because Elaine had like 2 more questions. So let me go ahead and pop up this next one here. So Elaine said, actually feel free to read this because I'm really bad at pronouncing. Is it the Macabebe who captured Aguinaldo? Are they considered a traitor or heroes? And Stacey, feel free to chime in as well if you want to give like a quick answer, but go.
It depends on who you ask, because they were often depicted as traitors because they helped the Americans capture Aguinaldo. But we have to understand that Aguinaldo was also a controversial leader in the Philippines. He killed, or he ordered, or under his leadership, a lot of our heroes were killed, like Andres Bonifacio, Antonio Luna. So the Macabebes are actually Bonifacio's roots is actually from Macabebe. So you can see how the Macabebe people, the town of Macabebe, how they have that resentment against Aguinaldo. And actually Aguinaldo burned the entire the church of Macabebe, even though their enemies were the Americans, but they actually burned Macabebe. So a lot of it's a complicated history, but yeah.
Well, thank you, Kirby. Stacey, anything you want to add real quickly?
I am not a fan of Aguinaldo. Just on a serious note, because of how he usurped power from the revolutionaries, who were all about no, when we say Filipino, we mean everyone. That includes the indigenous, recognize them too as part of the Philippines. He was not that kind of lifestyle. So I'm not a fan of Aguinaldo, because eventually, if you know the next history, eventually he was with the Americans too.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really,
Yeah, he actually surrendered to the Spanish, accepted money from the Spaniards to go into exile, and then came back and allied himself with the Americans. And then when the Japanese in World War II arrived, he also sided with the Japanese. So you see how he can be seen as, how Macabebes actually did not like him.
Wow. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
The answer is he was a traitor.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm most excited
my bad.
I'm most excited about watching the replay later to really digest everything you guys are sharing right now. But thank you for answering. Okay, one quick final question. So Elaine, thank you for asking all these questions, by the way. Last one is, how big is Tondo Kingdom before Western pre-colonial era?
Cool. It's hard to tell how big the kingdom was because again, we don't have surviving records that exist. A lot of it was lost during the 3 different burnings of Manila. One was when the Spaniards came, the second one was when the British came, and the third one was when the Japanese and the Americans fought World War II in Manila. So a lot of our archives are burnt and now ashes. But if in terms of the territories of the kingdoms in the Philippines, and especially Tondo in this question, it's how to explain this. Again, the kingdoms in the Philippines had overlapping territories. So Tondo itself was specific to that community on the north banks of the Pasig River in Manila, and on the south was actually Manila. So they're technically a smaller kingdom together, or separately. They're smaller kingdoms, but overall, there's also what a lot of records indicate in the Chinese records, in the a lot of records outside the Philippines indicate that there was actually a kingdom of Luzon that they called the Kingdom of Luzon, which Tondo and Manila was a part of. So if you think about how to explain this, it's so hard. It's so hard to explain in a Western lens. But one example I could think of was the Holy Roman Empire in Europe, where it's a empire made up of a bunch of smaller kingdoms and principalities. So that's how a lot of the kingdoms were in the Philippines. So even though Manila and Tondo were independent from one another, from an outsider's perspective, they were actually part of this bigger kingdom that the Chinese called the Kingdom of Luzon. So Tondo, so yeah, there's a bunch of different kingdoms that come together and form this bigger kingdom, and then they, among their leaders, they elect the or they chose, they elected the paramount king or queen. In the case earlier was Kalangitan, she was the paramount queen of the entire kingdoms of Luzon, the different kingdoms of Luzon. And then when the Spaniards came, there was actually two or three paramount kings when the Spaniards came in 1571 in Manila. They're actually in the book. One of them is or actually two of them are my direct ancestors. So that's Raja Matanda. His name in Tagalog literally means the old king, or in Kapampangan, the king that's full of wisdom. And then his brother. So Matanda ruled, or in a lot of records, such as the Spanish records, he was referred to as the king of Luzon. And then the other one is his brother, Lakandula, who was the king of Tondo. And the third one is their nephew, Raja Sulaiman, who was the king specifically in the city-state of Manila. So all three of them were considered to be the paramount kings in the entire Luzon. Not the entire island, but the entire central Luzon and southern Luzon, the Tagalog and Kapampangan speaking people when the Spaniards came. So it's a little bit complicated. I might go into tangent if I talk a lot about it. But yeah.
But if you want to learn more, you can always reach out to Kirby at his website, KirbyAraullo.com, or follow his YouTube channel. So there you go. Elaine also just says thank you to all of you. Of course, thank you so much for joining us here, and really to all our viewers who just wanted to watch us today, and all the likes and hearts that I see here. Want to thank you guys so much for participating and kind of saying farewell to Nani and I as we go in the off season here on the Filipino American Women Project. But as a reminder, you guys can always join us at Chismis with Jen and Nani, where we're going to be starting a book club there. All you have to do is just buy us 1 cup of boba and let us know that you want to join us. And it's a way for us to continue to, share have these exchange of conversations with, books that are, made by Filipino, Philippine-X authors. So other than that, I know I think this is a great time to wrap up our little activity today. Nani, is there anything else I'm missing out on here that you want to mention before we go?
No, I think we covered it all. I knew that we were going to run out of time, so it is what it is. But again, if you guys enjoyed this and want us to do more of this, or want to see Kuya back again on this channel, then let us know.
Maybe we can do the other one next time. The next coloring book is about queens across Southeast Asia. That's not done yet, but yeah.
Yes, exactly. So let us know if that sounds like something that you guys are interested in, if you guys had fun coloring along with us. And thank you all for joining.
Yes. And of course, a quick shout out to Stacy again. Congratulations on your award. Any closing thoughts from you before we go?
No, happy film history. I'm so sad and happy that it's over because we had so many talks. But I am super excited to celebrate with you all again next year. Make sure you subscribe to Manong Kirby's YouTube and you buy their books, because that's what you should treat yourself to with that discount code. Okay. Happy fam, everybody.
Yes, happy fam, everybody. And of course, Kirby, thank you again so much for spending time with us in this month. For both of you, the fact that I know that you two are so in high demand this month in regards to just, kind of spitting out information that people ask you. I'm sure you've been getting that all month, but just thank you for your passion, in doing this passion and sense of responsibility to show up for our community. It is greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Salamat.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. I think I got one more comment here. And I am not an interpreter, so I want to read this first.
It's kakala salamat kay kayungan. It means maraming salamat sa inyong lahat, or thank you to all of you, or salamat. As I mentioned in my videos before, salamat means we say to say thanks, but it actually means peace, wishing the other person peace and prosperity and good health and long life. So this person is wishing us peace.
Well, thanks, Christian. Appreciate it.
Salamat, Christian. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Happy Filipino American History Month. Remember that just because a month is over doesn't mean you have to stop studying. There are so many amazing resources and people, including Stacy and Kirby and their involvement with the Bulusan Center. Feel free to reach out to them directly to learn more about that. And of course, we can provide that in the show notes later. This is by Riverboy. Happy Filipino American History Month. Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
I was gonna say something about Riverboy and Stacy. Stacy can probably provide the link, but we worked on a timeline of Filipino American history with the Bolosan Center, led by Stacy. Actually, the project was led by
Yeah.
Stacy. So check it out on the Bolosan website, I believe, or it will be there.
Yes.
Or is it there already? I haven't checked.
I'm running on Filipinx time, so
That's okay.
tomorrow for
Yay.
sure.
Love it.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
timeline also includes pre-colonial Philippines, about the Luzones, because they were the first Filipino Americans or Filipinos who arrived in America. So yeah, check it out
Love it.
on the Bolosan Center website. And speaking of River Boy, since he said hi, hello. Tomorrow is actually, I have two more events tomorrow, my last events for this month, and one is with River Boy from Cultura on Facebook. We're gonna go on Facebook Live, and we're gonna talk about the Luzones who arrived in America.
Awesome. And of course, Kirby or Stacy, if you guys want to add this in the comments of these videos later, feel free to do that, or send it to me directly, just so we can share these resources with everyone. Okay, that's it. We're wrapping up. I keep trying to stretch this out because I don't want to go, but we got to go. All good things come to an end.
It's late over there.
Yeah, it is late over. Yeah, I will tell you, it's 10:45 right now, y'all. So thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for the hands. Yes, appreciate you guys. Well, other than that, happy Filipino American History Month. Thank you all so much, and happy holidays if we don't chat sooner. So goodbye, everyone.
Salamat.
Salamat. Bye.
Bye.